Y'all, my brow game is super strong today. Who is she? Hey everybody, my name is Emily. I'm a poet and I also write novels in verse for young adult readers. I'm currently on submission with my first project and I am working my way through my second project, 200 words by 200 words a day, and I am taking you guys along for the journey. Today is Monday, February 15th. And for the past 2 writing days, I have hit my daily word count, but y'all, I switched back to writing on paper and not on my new computer. I got a new computer. It's the first time I've owned a Mac. It's very sleek and very efficient and does its job well, but I went back to writing on just a good old-fashioned legal pad, and I've been really enjoying it, and I think I might switch back over. That's how I wrote my first novel in verse, well, the first 2, the one that didn't really go anywhere, and then the one that's out now. But I enjoy it, I think, much more being away from the screen. I think that there's the physicality of holding the notepad and holding paper and holding a pen really elevates the responsibility of that time that I'm spending writing, and something about that reinforces to me that it's time to write, it's time to pay deep attention to the craft in a way that isn't quite facilitated to the same capacity when I'm typing on a keyboard. Writing's gone pretty well for the past 2 days. I am technically still on track with my beat sheet, although I'm about 400-ish words behind. So I'm currently around a little bit past the 13K mark. I'm aiming for about 30 to 35,000 words for this draft. The fact that I'm at 13K means that 15K is potentially the halfway mark, and there's so much to do in 2,000 words. I'm psyching myself out a little bit. I think I'm just going to have to do my best to follow along with the micro plotted beat sheet that I have, and then just reevaluate once I hit the false defeat. I can just imagine all y'all prose writers out there being like, what the heck is she doing? Like, why is she thinking about 200 word increments? Like, that's such a minute piece of language to be working with. But when constructing a novel in verse, I found it really helpful to go vignette by vignette. But then here's the problem, right? Like, when I feel like I'm not on pace to meet that, then that's when I start to think, oh no, I'm behind, when really the margin of error is only a few hundred words. I also wanted to share with y'all, and I'll have the link down below, that I published a review in the Adroit Journal yesterday it came out, and I'm really excited about it. It's the book The Falls by Emily Moan Slate. Do I have my copy up here? I did find my copy on my leaning bookshelf. This is The Falls. What a beautiful cover, right? This is The Falls by Emily Moan Slate. It won the New American Poetry Prize, and it came out with, I should remember, I just wrote about this book, but it was released by New American Press. That makes sense. Same name as the prize. And I really thought it was lovely. It explores empathy and motherhood. And if you want to read more about my exploration of the themes and the technique in Moan Slate's work, I will have that linked down below. And what was really cool is once I finished saving my writing for the day, because I did go over and then type up the words that I had written today, I got a message from another poet who I think is really cool. They messaged me on Twitter and said, oh, I read your review. Would you be interested in reviewing my book? Which is really a cool opportunity. So I'm probably going to respond to them after I shoot this clip. But I really do enjoy writing book reviews, and that's something that I want to do more in the upcoming year. 1, it's just such a great way to build community and to pay it forward. And 2, it really encourages me to think more deeply about the work that I read. I've probably talked about Philip B. Williams in many of my other videos, but I just really like his thoughts and his perspective on the literary community. And way back when, he tweeted something about hype culture on social media and how, we being poets and writers really praise each other and can build each other up on these platforms, but sometimes we fall into a habit of really imprecise language, like saying, oh, if you haven't read this book yet, what are you doing? Or this book will change your life, instead of really focusing on how well can I articulate the themes and the craft in this book and what they accomplish. And so that has stuck with me, and I try to incorporate that thinking into reading text and being really thorough in my analysis. And so a book review is a perfect way to be able to spend time more deeply with someone else's work. So I'm excited that I might be able to get to do it again pretty soon. Hey friends, it is Wednesday, the 17th, I think. It is so dark in here. I will keep this clip quick. I apologize. We don't have overhead light on the upstairs in our house. So even with my little ring light, it is so dark in here. But I didn't hit my word count today. I was like 30 words shy, but I then was like 70 words over yesterday. So it's evening out. I'm still panicking a little bit because I realized that I'm almost at the 14,000 word mark, which means that I should be hitting my midpoint at 15K for the novel in verse. And thank goodness I realized that I plotted out the end of the false victory to be about 16K instead. But still, y'all, I have 2,000 words and there's so much that has to happen. And I don't know if it is gonna happen. However, what I have found really successful this week is returning to writing by hand instead of on my laptop. And what I've noticed is that not only am I taking there's like a gravity to the writing that I don't feel. Also, my boyfriend is prepping pizza. This is like the lowest quality clip ever. My apologies. But what I've noticed is that at the end of each chapter, at the end of each little vignette, I'm treating it more like a chapter now, where I'm trying to make sure that there's some type of tension that is going to be immediately resolved at the end or at the next page. And it's not a cliffhanger, but it's just enough to where there's a momentum that I hope is going to be achieved throughout the pages. And that is something that I spent a lot of time crafting with my first project, the one I'm on sub with now, and I wrote that one entirely by hand. So the good news is that I'm getting that craft back and I'm focusing on it more intentionally. The bad news is I'm like, oh crap, what about everything else that I've typed? Like, is the tension not taut enough in those scenes? So I kind of like, let me know if you guys have this panic in the fun and game section where I'm like, oh, crap, like, is the pacing right? Is the word count right? Is the tension right? And then I'm also starting to think about how many facets of this world that I'm probably going to have to research more for. I did preliminary research going in, but this story, the concept of this story is a lot less drawn from my real life, whereas, my Hurricane Florence book, I lived through that. So it was much easier for me to be able to pull from experience, whereas I'm making up a lot more of this world. It's still YA contemporary, and it's, health anxiety I can draw from, but the world of like Bigfoot hunting, we're gonna have to do some more research. One of the characters is a ballerina. I want more research on that. Two of the characters are of Yakima descent, so I did some preliminary research on the history of the Yakima in the area where I live. It was so disgusting to read about all of the different land treaties that the United States government placed on this area, and how literally it would change like every single decade, the rules for land ownership, and how it's so disheartening and disgusting to read. Traditional folklore, that was something that was really fun to explore. So I've done preliminary research, but I know that there's going to need to be a lot more supplemental research as well to finish this draft. So, or maybe it'll be draft like 2.0. So we'll see. I feel like my brain always tries to trick me during the fun and games where I start to feel overwhelmed. And instead of just continuing to move forward, consistently hitting those small word increments, those daily target goals every single day, my brain's like,
oh no, you need to do more research, or oh, you need to rewrite those scenes, or
and you know, you just got to keep moving forward. But writing by hand has definitely, I think, brought a sharpness back to the craft in a way that maybe my computer just wasn't letting me, it wasn't allowing it in the same way. So for now, midway through the week of writing by hand again, it's going pretty well. I think I'm going to stick with it, and then I will check back in with you guys later. Hello friends, it is Thursday the 18th. We are outside again. It is lightly snowing. I don't know if it picks up on the camera. I did hit my word count for the day. I finished my writing on my lunch break, but I'm still having the fun and games freak out that I was having yesterday. It has not gone away. I hit the 14K mark today, and I realized I was looking through my beat sheet from here until the end of the fun and games.
I was like, girl, you don't have enough time, you don't have enough space.
And also I'm having a character kind of info dump a lot right now, which is fine. It's gonna move the plot forward. Maybe I will, re-navigate and break it up into 2 scenes like I had originally planned, but I didn't remember I had originally planned for all of this information to be shared over 2 different scenes. So yeah, I'm still facing that frustration of crap. Like, why is this fun and game section so much more difficult for me to kind of weed through than last time? And another thing I realized is that the false victory is going to happen at a big social gathering type of event. And I'm excited for it. I'm excited to write it. I think it's going to be really effective, but I don't have a specific timeline for this story, which was something I knew going into it. Last book that I wrote, the Hurricane Florence book, literally, y'all, I had that mapped out day by day by day, and it was really easy to do because it was mostly pulled, the timeline was pulled from my own memories. So we don't have that for this book. Which means, editing Emily is really gonna have to go back in and think of a timeline, because this info dumpy conversation that one character is having, it's leading up to this big social gathering, but it's just casually mentioned. And if I've got to get them to the social gathering in 2,000 words, then this person there needs to be more urgency about mentioning this upcoming event, and there's not. So editing Emily is definitely going to have much more fine-tuning to do. Second draft, more research is definitely going to be needed, and also I'm going to have to play around more with timeline, which is interesting because I really didn't have that many skeletal edits to make on my first book. It was pretty straightforward, and it's a little frustrating to think that I'm gonna have to do more work for the second book. But let me know if you guys have found that there's a difference in craft between your various projects. I mean, obviously projects aren't all going to be the same experience, but it's strange to think that something is going to be easier in the first book than the second book. You would think things would just get easier over time, but we'll see. So like I said, let me know how your projects are going, and if you've noticed a difference in craft or style, or if like one thing, whether it was voice or tone or plot or imagery or whatever, if something was easier in your first project than your second project, let me know, right? Like, is this the sophomore slump? Hey everybody, it is Saturday, February the 20th. I'm wrapping up the end of this week's writing vlog. So I hit the 1,400 word mark, but I am still struggling through the fun and games. They're not fun anymore. I don't know if I'm just experiencing a sophomore slump or what is going on. really, I think I'm just in my head too much. And what I'm dealing with is my fun and games keeps expanding. I am at a good part though, where at least I know that every scene subsequent to the one I'm writing is really gonna have to push the plot forward quickly and decisively, because we're approaching this event, which is going to be where the false victory occurs. So we're moving forward towards that. I'm just running into two issues. And the first issue is that I don't have a timeline. I have like a rough timeline. I know that it's going to take place, the book is going to take place over the course of a few months. I typically know what months those will be in terms of thinking about my high school protagonist's academic calendar. But I do not have a day-by-day timeline like I did with Hurricane Florence, with my hurricane project, because I lived that experience. And so it was so easy to just go back and to track various social media posts or to look at weather apps and to go back in time. So that timeline was tight, okay? Snatched. She was great. I miss her. This one, so I'm just inserting things into the dialogue. I'm inserting brackets into the dialogue that's like, mention upcoming timeline, question mark. I did not have to do that type of work in the first book. So I'm running into that, just realizing that my timeline is gonna have to be, I'm gonna need a timeline just in general. I'm just gonna have to work to make a timeline for this new project. The other thing that's been bothering me is that my fun and games keeps expanding. So when I originally plotted the book at 30K, I entered into Act 2A. I should have entered into Act 2A at 6,000 words, and we entered into it at 5,961 words. So like pretty spot on, right? I was feeling great about that. That means that at 15K, with the original 30K goal for the draft, at 15K I should be done with, I should be at the midpoint. I should be done. Yeah, that's not gonna happen. So if I'm now anticipating a 35K draft, final draft, then that pushes out the fun and games to about 17.5 words, which is fine. That's what I'm on track for now. But is that gonna make the fun and games feel too long when Act 1 is roughly 20% of the 30K mark? And now if I extend the word count in the middle of the fun and games, that just drags the fun and games on, and it's already the longest beat. So honestly, really the only thing that I can do now is just stop being in my head and continuing to write every single day and see how the scenes play out. That's usually the answer for everything, right? Is just keep writing and see how it goes. So I will keep y'all updated, of course. If you are working on a project, let me know where you're at. Even if you don't use Save the Cat as a plotting tool, let me know whereabouts in your story you're at. If you are in the fun and games, let me know so we can soldier on together. Appreciate you guys hanging out this week, and I will check in with you next time.